In blind taste tests, more people picked Pepsi. And last year, PepsiCo sold almost twice as much as Coca-Cola did, $94 billion against 48. By nearly every number people usually reach for, Pepsi should be winning the cola wars. So why is Coca-Cola worth nearly double PepsiCo on the stock market? And why has it stayed that way for decades? The answer isn't a better ad campaign. It's a decision each company made, years apart, about what kind of company to become. Both companies start the same way, in the same industry, 12 years apart. In 1886, an Atlanta pharmacist named John Pemberton invents a syrup he sells at soda fountains as a tonic. In 1898, a pharmacist in New Bern, North Carolina, Caleb Bradham, names H. Pepsi-Cola goes bankrupt in 1923. And here's the part that gets left out of most retellings. Over the following decade, Pepsi's owners approached Coca-Cola 3 separate times, offering to sell the entire brand, the formula, and every other asset, reportedly for as little as $50,000. Coca-Cola turns them down, all 3 times. The reasoning, as it's been told since, $50,000 seems steep for a knockoff cola that would probably fade out on its own, the way most Coke imitators had. It didn't fade out. Pepsi's assets get bought out of that bankruptcy by Charles Guth, president of a candy company, with his own grudge against Coca-Cola. He reformulates the drink and makes one change that matters. He sells 12 ounces of Pepsi for a nickel, the same nickel that bought only 6 ounces of Coke. In the middle of the Great Depression, twice the soda for the same coin is not a subtle pitch. Pepsi surges. Then World War II gives Coca-Cola a head start that Pepsi spends the rest of the century trying to close. In 1941, CEO Robert Woodruff orders that every man in uniform gets a bottle of Coca-Cola for 5 cents, wherever he is, whatever it costs the company. With sugar rationing exemptions for war-related production and cooperation from the Department of Defense, Coca-Cola builds 64 bottling plants near military operations around the world during the war, with company staff embedded alongside the troops. By the time the war ends, the number of countries with a Coca-Cola bottling operation has more than doubled. That's not a marketing win. That's a global distribution network built at wartime speed that an ordinary competitor couldn't have financed or permitted in peacetime. Pepsi doesn't get an equivalent. In 1965, PepsiCo makes the decision that eventually explains everything in this video. It acquires Frito-Lay, its first major move outside beverages into snack foods. From this point on, the two companies are quietly building different kinds of businesses. Coca-Cola keeps selling concentrate and licensing its brand to bottlers, a business with almost no factories or trucks of its own. PepsiCo starts manufacturing, packaging, and shipping potato chips, a business with a lot of both. In 1975, Pepsi launches its most famous campaign, the Pepsi Challenge, filming ordinary people picking one cola over the other, blind. It works. Pepsi's U.S. market share climbs from around 6% toward 14%, and by 1979, it's at nearly 18%, closing in on Coke's 24%. One detail makes the paradox stranger than Pepsi tastes better. In blind tests, Coke drinkers correctly picked out their own preferred brand only about 47% of the time, worse than a coin flip. Pepsi drinkers pick their own brand correctly about 86% of the time. People who say they love Coke often can't identify it blind, and yet they keep buying it, labeled. 10 years later, Coca-Cola takes that data seriously enough to act on it, and gets it wrong. In April of 1985, the company replaces its 99-year-old formula with a sweeter recipe that had beaten both Pepsi and Old Coke in company taste tests. The backlash is immediate. Thousands of complaint calls a day, organized protests, a formula reversal 79 days later. The lesson Coca-Cola takes from New Coke isn't about the syrup. It's that the brand itself, the thing people were actually loyal to, was worth more than the thing in. 3 years after that fiasco, in 1988, Warren Buffett starts buying Coca-Cola stock. Over the next 6 years, Berkshire Hathaway builds a 400 million share stake for a little over $1.3 billion, an average cost of about $3.25 a share. Buffett isn't betting on a better tasting drink. He's betting on exactly the thing New Coke had just proven the hard way. An asset-light brand with global distribution and pricing power is a different kind of asset than a factory. Berkshire has never sold a share. In 2001, PepsiCo completes the fork it started in 1965, buying Quaker Oats for $13.4 billion. Coca-Cola makes no equivalent move. One company doubles down on beverages and brand licensing. The other builds a diversified food and beverage conglomerate. Both are reasonable bets. They're just not the same bet. Here's where that fork lands, in each company's own FY 2025 numbers. PepsiCo brought in $93.9 billion in revenue. Coca-Cola brought in $47.9 billion, less than half. By revenue, this isn't close. Pepsi wins. Now look at the same two companies, measured a different way. Coca-Cola's market capitalization is around $360 billion. PepsiCo's is around $190 to $210 billion. The company that sells half as much is worth almost double. Here's why. Of every dollar Coca-Cola brings in, about 27 cents becomes net income. Of every dollar PepsiCo brings in, about 9 cents does. Coca-Cola keeps roughly 3 times more of every dollar than PepsiCo does, because concentrate and brand licensing is a lighter, higher margin business than manufacturing and shipping snack food at scale. The market didn't score the bigger seller. It scored the better margin. It's tempting to explain the cola wars with taste, or advertising, or which commercial you remember from childhood. Those things are real, and they make for a better story. But they're not why one of these companies is worth nearly double the other, decade after decade. That was decided by a handful of decisions, years apart, about what kind of company to build. One that stayed narrow and licensed a brand, and one that grew wide and built factories. Bigger didn't win, the better margin did.